Okie dokie, it is recording. All right, welcome everybody. So today is a live study session. So first, what I'm going to be doing is reviewing the content in a little bit more of a lecture style format, and then we'll finish up with some discussion and Q&A to help clarify and answer questions. Tomorrow, there will be another live study session. That one is scheduled at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's a study session where we'll be going into more depth as well as hands-on activities and practice for you to really get a good sense and a good idea of how to create interventions and how to judge which assessments and interventions to use. That will be similar questions that will pop up on the exam. So today is more of that like conceptual backing to make it easier for you to answer those questions. Both presentations, both sessions will be recorded, and I'll be developing independent materials to use for those who are watching the recording. If you are someone who is watching the recording right now, be sure to look below the video for links and downloadables. And if you watching this on YouTube, be sure to head over to lizstudyhour.thinkific.com, which should be linked below. That way you're able to access all of those fun downloadable activities. Okay, let's get started. So today we're reviewing how to go about assessing a client's verbal behavior, as well as how to teach and provide intervention for verbal behavior. So what this presentation is not about is a review of common assessment tools. I'm not presenting on how to do the VB-MAP or how to do the Vineland or the PEAK or anything like that. What I am providing you with in these presentations is that underlying conceptual understanding based in the science of behavior analysis so that you can go out and provide assessments and treatments however your job requires you to do it. And hopefully it'll help you stay true to the science and not drift away from what the science actually is. So the reason I say that is because there's lots of practitioners out there who follow the, we call it the bag of tricks model of teaching, to where it's, they look at a client and say, oh, I've worked with a client like this before. I'm going to use this, this, and this. And they kind of pull tricks out of their bag. That's not what behavior analysts are. Behavior analysts are scientists. Every client we have is different. So we do individualized assessments, individualized treatment plans based off of the client's needs. And so our assessments are really vital to that process. So I just want to make that clear up front. If you do ever plan to do a VB-MAP, a PEAK, a ABLS, AFLS, any type of assessment like that, those people who produced those materials have their own training for how to use those materials. Your workplace will probably provide that to you, unless you're a BCBA who has your own practice. Then you will likely have to pay for some sort of training. Okay, purpose of assessment. So most of you have been in the field for a while, and I see a good amount of you have conducted or have helped conduct assessments already in your line of work. I realize I did not put an option for no, I have not conducted any assessments. So if that is your situation, then hopefully you just clicked other. So the purpose of assessments, really there's three main purposes or outcomes from assessments. The first is to identify the nature of the delay or the problem. So whatever it is that we are working on, especially as it relates to verbal behavior, we want to identify, why is it happening? I'll give you a really, really great example of a situation where this one purpose was skipped. Somebody forgot to answer this question. It was a 2.5-year-old client who had language delays. She didn't have any words. She had a lot of vocalizations and sounds that she would make, but nothing that was functional. And so, we did the basic assessment and found, she has no functional communication, so we're going to start treatment. And this was that like bag of tricks things I was talking about, where they just kind of pulled out, okay, we're going to do MAN training, TAC training, this, and this. We started, providing the intervention, and a couple months went by and there was no change. And so finally we kind of like stopped, we went back, and we're like, all right, why isn't anything getting better? Because we were behavior analysts, we were looking at data, we were trying to make things better. Turns out this client had hearing problems. She was partially deaf. So it's really hard to echo someone's sounds if you can't hear the sounds that they're making. So this was an error on our part. We did not answer the underlying reason why she had a language delay. So anytime you're doing an assessment, these types of questions are usually built into the assessment. Have you looked at biological or medical factors first to see if that's the reason why there's some sort of delay? So for this client, the reason why she had a language delay was because she couldn't hear anybody. She wasn't able to copy the sounds, along with a couple other things. It's a little more complex than that. But so that's the first purpose. Identify the nature of the delay or the problem. The next purpose is to compare those current levels, their current skill levels, to that expected norm. So what does that mean? Well, in behavior analysis, we look at the typical development pattern of typically developing children, and our assessments kind of rate our clients or compare them to what that typical path is and see, where are there some gaps. So some of the clients we work with may totally be on par with tacting. They have a great tacting repertoire, right in line with their age group, but they may be lower on the manding repertoire. So by doing this, we're able to kind of identify, what skills do they need more help in. Finally, the last purpose is to provide guidance for our intervention. So all of our interventions, all of our recommendations should always be based on the assessment. There should always be some guidance there. Again, everything we do is individualistic. It's based on each client's needs. There is not a one size fits all intervention. So all of our interventions must be based on assessments. Now, I've mentioned a couple of these already. There are many standardized language assessments that some of them are just language assessments. Some of them are all encompassing. It's language and behaviors and living skills and a whole bunch of different skills to assess. It's important to be aware of these. You will be expected to use these at any company that you work at, as well as, some insurance companies require some of them, or funding sources require them. So I know out here in California, we have several insurance companies that require the Vineland for any client that we have, even though it's probably my least favorite assessment tool that I've ever used. I feel silly filling out the question of, can your child put dishes in the dishwasher for a 2-year-old child? Like, it's a silly question. The VB map is most often used now for early learners, young children. And then there's AFLs and ABLs, which have been around for quite a while before the VB map. PEAK is also a new one, relatively new, that's gaining popularity. Again, I'm not really going to go into very much depth about these because each one has their own specialized training that you should go through. But what we are going to do today is understand how the concepts behind verbal behavior kind of inform all of these assessments. So no matter which assessment you are tasked with doing, you will understand the rationale behind assessments in general. All right. So what is it that we are assessing when we look at verbal behavior? Generally, you're trying to answer these questions. So how strong are these skills? And then are there any barriers that get in the way of learning these skills? So the skills with verbal behavior are kind of just these four: the elementary verbal operants, the listener skills, and then as children and clients gain more complex language, these last two kind of come into play: multiply controlled responding and speaker and listener interactions. So in an assessment, there'll be questions and prerequisites that you need to look at and so on, in order to evaluate really how strong are they or how weak are they in these skills. And then, like I said before, identifying any barriers that are getting in the way of learning these skills. All right, so let's look at those first two, the elementary operants. You should know them all. If not, there is a part 2 that we did before this, so that you can learn about all the elementary operants. But these are your mands, your tacts, your duplicate codic, which is your echoic, mimetic, all of textual, those fun ones. And then intraverbals. And then you have your listener skills, which are going to be evaluating these items. Again, this is a list that increases in complexity. So there's your simple listener skills, which is just your basic, touch your head, hand me this, basic listener skills. But then you can evaluate, are they able to listen based on auditory instructions? Compound listener skills, which are combining two different attributes of something. Can you hand me the green marker? And then verbal conditioning and verbal function altering are also more complex listener skills. So things like an instruction of, hey, when mom gets home, you need to do the dishes. So that's a behavior that's going to happen in the future, and it's conditional on when mom comes home. So that's the new SD for the behavior, but it's controlled by a verbal instruction. So don't worry too much about those for this presentation, but just know that this is the range of complexity that you may be assessing in clients. A majority of clients in the ABA field right now are the very early learners. So a lot of your assessments will really focus on that elementary operants, and then the more simple auditory listener skills. Okay, so more about what you're assessing. Anytime you're assessing any skill, you're pretty much asking these three questions. The first one is, what behavior are you assessing? What is the actual response? And then with that response, what are the antecedents that are expected to come before that response? What are the MOs that should be present for that response, if any? And then the consequences. What should the consequence be for this type of response? So I'll give you an example to help make this a little more clear. When it comes to manding, you're assessing a mand. So let's think about this. What are those antecedents that come before a mand? What should be controlling a mand repertoire?
The MO.
MO.
Nice, good job. I didn't even expect anyone to say anything. You guys are amazing. Yes, the MO is the controlling variable when it comes to manding. So when you are assessing mands, you're also assessing MOs. You need to make sure that there is you can just ask, you don't have to make sure there is, but you want to ask, is there a variety of MOs that this child replies to? Or are they limited to only a few different types of reinforcers? if they are limited, that's going to be a bit of a barrier for you when you're teaching MANs, because you can only teach so many if they only have a limited amount of MOs. So for example, I'm sure we've all had clients that we've worked with that had a bit of a limited MO. Maybe they really just liked one video on YouTube, and that was the only thing they really ever found interesting. If there was no iPad or YouTube around, they kind of would just wander around, not really engage with anything. But the second you play that intro sound to their song, now they're suddenly looking around trying to do anything to get access to that video. Same with food, very limited MO with food. They might only eat one type of food. Another question would be with strength. So whoa, does someone have a question? Okay, just want to make sure. It's okay if you do. You can unmute yourself and interrupt me. I don't mind. So strength is, are their MO repertoire strong? Or do they walk away if you put a slight response requirement? So that kid that I mentioned before may really love this song on YouTube, and it might be a really strong MO. So if I put any sort of response requirements on them, they'll stay engaged with me and try to figure out what I'm asking them to do in order to get access to that. Or are they the opposite, where if I put a slight requirement on them, they're like, it's not worth it, and they'll just walk away. So both variety and strength are gonna affect how you teach MANs. If they don't have very strong motivating operations, you're gonna have to work on that first before you can really start to expand their MAN repertoire. All right, so we talked about the antecedents, so the actual behavior. Do they already have some vocalizations, or do they already have some ability to use their hands to make signs, or some sort of prerequisites for manding? Oh, that's the consequence one. So you want to ask that to kind of see what do they currently do in order to get their needs met. So I've worked with clients who don't have any vocalizations, they don't make any sounds, and they don't imitate any motion yet. So you kind of have to work on that first before you can really work on that MAN training. You can work on it at the same time, but it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. And then with the consequence relations, when they are engaging in some way to MAN for something, are they getting that, reinforcement immediately? That's important, because getting reinforcement immediately is what helps establish those really strong reinforcement relations, that very strong contingency. And then you also want to ask, how do they currently get their needs met? So if they don't have any vocalizations, if they don't imitate, you can ask, all right, well, how are they getting their needs met? Do they cry and then, their parents just kind of give them whatever they need until they stop crying? That's how they figure out what they want. Or is it just kind of a free-for-all all the time? They just have access to everything all the time, so they never need to ask for anything. Or do they, maybe go grab their mom's hand and pull her along to the kitchen when they're hungry? So these are the types of questions you're asking. And again, it's really around just the ABCs, the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. And then based on that, you can start to create an intervention. So really, when it comes to intervention, the assessment questions that we just went over are going to kind of inform it. So is that controlling variable strong? Is there a strong MO? Or if it's attacked, are they able to orient to the environmental stimuli that's around them? Do they have the prerequisite skills that are needed to engage in that response? So like we said with manding, Are they able to make sounds? Or do we need to start somewhere earlier and just work on maybe reaching for something or pointing for something? And then what does the ultimate goal look like? I think this is a very important question that sometimes gets forgotten, because we of course want our clients to be, the most independent as possible. So it's really important to think about that ultimate goal. So what do I mean by that? Well, I always like to think of a typical language development. How do we all learn to talk normally? So there's, a whole area of psychology based on just this, the developmental psychology. And they do go over language development and how they're pretty sure language development develops in babies. So for example, in utero, all of us who have, the ability to hear, we hear our parents' voices constantly, and it's paired with that comfort of being inside the womb. We're safe, and we hear it more than we hear anybody else's voice. So that voice becomes the one that we orient to when we're born. 0 to 3 months, babies are crying, and they cry to get their needs met. They are learning how to mand, even though it's crying. There's still an MO in place. They're hungry or they're dirty, so they cry, and then they're getting that specific reinforcement that they have that MO for. Mothers, you mothers who are out there, you probably noticed that your baby developed different cries depending on what their need was. Those are, differentiations between crying in order to get specific needs met. So that's kind of like what early manding looks like. 4 to 6 months, you start seeing babies imitating facial expressions, imitate the sounds we make. They'll start imitating our emotions. They'll start babbling to get our attention because they're learning that they like the social attention that they get from us. They're orienting to different sounds. So I actually want to throw in some fun videos here. This one was floating around recently. Can you guys see the YouTube video? Okay. This one was floating around recently as like a TikTok challenge. I don't feel like I could do this to my baby. I don't like making babies cry. But if you haven't seen this, this is a great example of babies that have learned to imitate expression and imitate emotion. So let's see if you can see what's happening. Okay, that's enough baby torture. But you can kind of see what's going on there, right? Now that you're learning behavior analysis. So there's a couple things, not just facial expression imitation. They're responding to some former stimulus of the sound of hitting some form of your body against the wall. They know what that sound is like. And previously, if they had ever hit their head against anything, it hurts. And so they cry and then they get comforted. So they're the parents are recreating the stimulus around the behavior of crying. And it in turn evokes that crying response. Let's see, I think I had another one. Oh, it's over here. Well, before I show that one. So the pictures in this slide, PowerPoint slide, are something I think we're all familiar with babies doing. If we've ever interacted with a baby, they are very good at orienting to our face, and they like to watch what we're doing in our facial expressions. And if you've ever made faces at a baby during this stage in development, they will copy what you're doing to the best of their ability. So if you're raising your eyebrows, they might try to do it too. If you're making weird shapes with your mouth, they'll try to make weird shapes with their mouth too. And it's a lot of it is we call it generalized imitation. And if you think about why they do it, it's because they're getting that generalized social reinforcement from it, which is the underlying reinforcement for tacting, echoics, all the different types of duplic and codic behavior. So it really starts very early. Let's see this video, kind of about communication milestones too, with 4 to 6 months old. So there'll be like a little video showing each one, but they're starting to engage in listener responding this early. So somebody, makes some noise and they're starting to orient to the sound of someone speaking. They're starting to babble. They're reacting to noises. This one babies do, I feel like most of the time. That's a reflex. Using babbling to get attention. So attention maintained behavior. Things like tacting. This is definitely an early tacting skill. And also manding, an early manding skill. Makes different kinds of sounds to express feelings. So this is that imitation of expression, imitation of sound, and then noticing toys is another one. But here, let's watch babies being babies.
You are. You are. It's so funny. It's so funny. That great sound.
I'll pause it on that one because that one is very important. So imitating the sounds that we're making, it leads to development of words and development of language. And if you think about why, it's basic shaping. So when babies start babbling, they're babbling with just the basic sounds like ba's, da's, ma's. And of course, moms get excited when they hear the ma sound. Like, oh my gosh, they're about to say mom for the first time. And so babies notice that. They notice when you're getting excited and they find that reinforcing. So they're like, well, I'm gonna say that more. And they'll start going mom, mama around mom. And mom gets even more excited until they finally just say mama. And then that gets reinforced. So we're shaping up these words in babies. The dad sound for some babies is a little bit harder than the mom sound. So sometimes dads are a little disappointed. It takes babies a little bit longer to shape that one up. But if the dad is the one at home getting excited over the dad sound, then that might be the sound that emerges first. And the baby is going to say dada more. So imitating all of our sounds, that's, early echoic. And then we're shaping up certain sounds and words to eventually produce more functional words. So now they're able to start gaining mom's attention by saying mom. They're able to gain dad's attention. They're able to start manding for people. All right. So this one's just a reflex. So that video I was a little contested with. It says babbling to get attention, but what do they actually show? Did anyone notice?
Attention.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily attention. They were
Access,
I
tangible.
said for the food.
for the food.
Laughing
Yeah, a baby
or
was asking for
asking.
food. Here, watch that one more time. Oh wait, let me go back a little further. Yeah, asking for food. So now when babies learn to mimic our emotions and mimic the sounds we make when we're happy and laughing, and so now they're starting to be able to do that on their own. It's not no longer a echoic or a codic or duplicate response where they're just copying us. Now they're kind of doing it independently based on the stimulus that's going on. And this one's important for listener responding, as well as tacting. Being able to orient to sounds going on in your environment, you need to be able to do that in order to tact those things. So hearing, a cool toy, or hearing a car outside, or hearing a train, your children can orient to that sound and then label it and get some generalized social reinforcement for it. But it's also important for listener skills. All right. I just like watching cute baby videos. Okay. So that's development does not stop at 6 months. Language keeps developing forever, pretty much. But these are where the basics, the prerequisites to our elementary verbal operants comes from. So a question that gets brought up when you're thinking about how to teach certain verbal operants is, when do you teach them? Do you teach them in a specific order? You're supposed to do manding first, and then the echoics, and then this and this. And really, there is not a strict order. Manding is a priority if there is limited manding repertoire, and especially if they're engaging in problematic behaviors to get access to things. So mands are very, very important to teach. But it's easier to teach mands if they already have an echoic and tact repertoire. So it's helpful to teach them alongside manding if they don't already have them. There are definitely clients out there who will have a strong tacting repertoire. They can go around and point at things and label things all day. But when it comes to asking their mom for food, they don't say anything. They don't use their words at all. Someone's here. So it's important to understand, what levels they're at in each verbal operant. So the VB-MAPP, I'll just name drop it one more time, does a really good job at evaluating the levels that each verbal operant is at. So there might be, they're good with tacting, but they're a little bit lower on echoics and really low with mands. And the goal with the VB-MAPP is to help equalize the levels and help make sure that they're developing and progressing at the same rate across all of the verbal operants, rather than just being really, really strong under one verbal operant. So manding is a priority, but it's still recommended to work on echoics and tacting alongside manding, because it does make it a lot easier. Interverbal is one that you have to wait. You can't teach intraverbals without a client having a good mand, tact, or listener repertoire, because intraverbals require sort of back and forth conversation. It's an interaction between a speaker and a listener, and both parties have to play both roles. So sometimes you're the speaker, sometimes you're the listener. So if you're going to be teaching intraverbals, to a client, they need to have that listener repertoire. They need to be able to tact, and they need to be able to mand for those, more complex conversations. It doesn't mean you can't work on those prerequisite introverbal skills or those fill in the blank type of introverbal programs. They can still be done, but the more complex conversation type programming really can't be done until you do have man's, tax, and listener skills. Imitation skills are also pretty helpful to have, or at least those, like general imitation skills, like when you're in the playground and you're kind of going back and forth, like I bang the drum and then you bang the drum. And it's kind of like a early back and forth relationship that you're working on. Okay, so how to teach operants. The secret to teaching verbal operants is that honestly, it's not any different than teaching any other behavior. That's the beautiful thing about the science of behavior analysis, is when you are working on increasing a behavior, it is true across all behaviors and all skills that you're trying to work on. You just have to remember the contingency that that behavior should be operating under and what that ultimate goal will be. I see someone has raised a hand. Let me finish this idea and then go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. So the contingency, what do I mean by that? So with manding, you have that MO. That's what controls the response. And then there's that specific reinforcement. So that's how you're going to teach it. You want to make sure that there's an MO in place. And then they provide a response. You might have to help prompt it, but you'll fade the prompt later. And then you want to provide that specific reinforcement immediately. Same with tacting. It's controlled by an environmental stimulus. So if they're not responding to environmental stimulus, again, you might have to prompt it to help orient them to that stimulus. And then provide the appropriate consequence, which is that general social reinforcement. Now, if they don't find general social reinforcement reinforcing, you're going to have to supplement it and pair it with something that is reinforcing. Same with echoics. Okay, I'm going to pause because I did see, I think, 2 hand raises. Go ahead and ask your question. I think I saw Marcia first.
Yep. How are you, Liz? I just had a quick question. So is this the order that it goes in for exam purposes? Because I was taught that echoic go after man's, but is it tact actually that we would teach after we teach man's?
So I'll have to double check and make sure that it's not something in Cooper, but I am pretty certain that there is no order to teaching verbal operants besides that more complex intraverbal skill. Man's are a priority. So if you're looking at, a program and you're like, okay, or you're looking at a client's assessment, and you're like, all right, they don't have man's, they don't have echoics, they don't have tax. What do I teach first? Man's, always, as man's help them meet their needs. But as far as, am I not allowed to teach them echoics because I'm only trying to teach them man's? No, you can work on them all at the same time.
Because I know the man's are first, but do we have to make sure that they have tacting abilities in their repertoire before we go into echoic, or would it be the other way around?
No.
Can I add something here? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes for teaching man, you need to use echoic also. You can mix them together in order to increase kiddos' manding. Like let's say you have cookie in your hand and you want kiddo to say cookie. Before you give that cookie to the kiddo, you can say, just hold it in your hand and you will say k, k. Maybe kiddo say k. And you say, yeah, that's right. And give piece of cookie. And then go higher and say, go now say cookie. Kiddo say cookie. And then you give, say, yeah, that's right. You can have cookie. So I learned this way. You like, especially for kiddo, which we really need to use echoic include with manding. I don't know. I hope I don't know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your feedback on that. The thing is for exam purposes, they do make you choose sometimes, like, and I've seen in my questions, like there's an order. So that's why if I do get this question on the exam, I want to be able to differentiate. Well, we've already taught MAND. So now what would you choose next? Would it be TACT or would it be echoic? That's just for
Right.
exam purposes.
So for
Just-
exam
just-
purposes, I do not believe, first of all, that they would ask anything like this. If that's in your mock, that's a mock, like a weird mock
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
But yeah, for the exam, I don't think they would ask you to order them because you should be teaching them all at the same time.
Gotcha. And then my other part to the question is, I just want to make sure also, because I know in Cooper, it says that if we're signing hello and saying hello, I thought both of those that would be echoic because I saw sign language as having saying hello and signing hello, that it has point-to-point correspondence. But according to Cooper, that's considered an interverbal. So I'm not really understanding how it does not have point-to-point when you're saying hello in sign language and then verbally saying hello. So is it all sign language when you're using that hand motion that it's considered no point-to-point?
No, I would have to see it in Cooper.
Can I say something? So with that, the only way
Yeah,
that
Jess, go at it.
the only way that it would be echoic is and the type of echoic for sign language is mimetic, which you will have, it would be if you're signing it and the other person is signing it, and it will have a point-to-point correspondence and a formal similarity. So that would be mimetic, M-I-M-E-T-I-C-S.
Yeah, the mimetic and the whatever that is, and the codec. I get that part, but they don't give you those options. It in Cooper, it just says like somebody's saying hello and somebody signs hello, and that is considered an interverbal.
Well, it doesn't have a it's not the same. It doesn't,
Yeah, but
it's not.
I saw it as because it's saying hello, like the sign is saying hello and you're verbally saying hello, that to me was like having the same beginning, middle, and end.
Yes,
That's how I saw it.
that is point-to-point correspondence. So it would not be an introverbal.
Saying hello and signing hello.
Right. So that is point-to-point correspondence. That's formal similarity that's different. So the
Yeah,
form
because
of-
interverbals don't have point-to-point or formal similarities. So that example was saying that it's an interverbal.
yeah. So why don't you, if you find it again, screenshot it and send it to me so I can
Well,
see
I mean,
what-
with me and Widna were talking about this, if you don't mind, Widna kind of jumping in on this. She had her hand up also, and I wasn't sure if it was even the same question also.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Widna.
So, well, I have another question. Okay, so I'll go to that question, but first, shaping, we could use it across every single verbal operand. It's not only echoic.
No, shaping is just a technique. You can use it
Right.
with any behavior that you need to get closer and closer to the target goal.
Okay, and then my other question was for echoic. Does it have to be on the kiddo's repertoire? Or it does not have to be on the kiddo's repertoire for echoics?
To teach manding?
No, to teach echoic. When you're teaching echoic, does it have to be on the kiddo's repertoire or it does not have to be on the kiddo's repertoire?
So you would only teach something if it's not in their repertoire. If they already have it, you don't have to teach it.
But then
Then-
you'll shape it like cook for cookie, then you start shaping it up like that,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then what Marsha was saying is the introverbal piece of it, because you signing hello and you vocalizing hello, that will make it an introverbal, if that was the question. Because
Yeah.
we signing hello and then we vocalizing in response. So it's like a conversation, but in a like signing and then responding vocally.
Mhm. Yeah, so
Yes.
why don't you both find that in the book for me? So I know exactly
Okay.
what you're talking about, and then I can help you out.
Okay. Can I ask a question? So for their example, where you guys are saying that you guys are signing and verbally saying hello, what's the response that the student is giving back? Are they signing back or saying hello back?
So
verbally?
you're saying hello and they're signing back hello.
Okay, so
Well-
yours, so their response is signing. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
It was the other way around. I signed hello, and in response, the kiddo vocalizes hello. Or I know that doesn't sound right. I think it was vice versa. Marsha's right. I signed hello, and the kid says hi.
He
Okay,
doesn't say hi, he says hello. It's got to be the same beginning, middle, and end.
Mhm.
So that's why when you know, that we brought it up, the question that signing, if you're signing, does that mean that every time you're having a conversation with someone who's non-vocal, then, and they're using sign language, is it always going to be an interverbal because of the form, because of the way it looks?
Well, technically, if you really think, I'm sorry, but technically, if you really think about it, if they say hello, it doesn't, the sign does not have the same beginning, middle, and end as hello. Because hello in sign language, hi in sign language is all the same. So it doesn't have the same, it does not have the same beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, I was looking at it as it did only because it's like that same word, you know what I mean? Because it's like, hello, hello, oh, point to point.
One
Yeah.
thing I would say to look at is the consequence for
Mhm.
that behavior. So if it's just an echoic, is it done after they sign back hello? And is it just that generalized social reinforcement? Or is it followed by another part of the conversation? That's what would make it an intraverbal.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely look in Cooper and
Yeah, find it and send it to me because I want to see
I
what
will
their example
definitely.
is.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, so we're almost done with the last little bit. So I wanted to give you an example of what I was talking about with teaching operants, using manding as an example. So when assessing a mand repertoire and when teaching a mand repertoire, you're gonna first make sure that the MO is there. I've seen this so many times where people are working on mand training and they are not ensuring that there's actually an MO in place. So, you know, they're working on, they have like 5 different words that we're working on teaching. And we're teaching, you know, car, ball, and cookie. And so they'll just have car, ball, and cookie next to them and they'll hold them up and they'll say, like, what do you want? And they'll, you know, have the child say it and they're like, great. And they give it to them and then the child doesn't even want it. That's not a mand. If the child doesn't want it, it is not a mand. So always make sure there's an MO. And there's 2 different ways to teach mands. You can do it in a natural way where you're kind of capitalizing and capturing them in a moment when an MO happens. So an example would be, you know, they're already getting up, looking around for a snack. Perfect opportunity to work on mands for snacks. You know, you might not get many learning opportunities if you just wait for natural opportunities to pop up. So another great way is to contrive opportunities. So you're creating MOs. An excellent way to do this is during play, especially if you're playing with toys that require multiple parts like blocks or Legos. So let's say you notice your client is building, stacking blocks and they're doing it with just the blue blocks. And so what you can do is sneakily grab a couple of the blue blocks so that you're playing with them in kind of a parallel way. And then they can notice, and you know, you're being very enticing with it. Like, wow, these blocks are so cool. I love this green one and then this blue block. And you're, you know, making it, you're building that MO, hopefully. Typically it'll happen where the client will notice that you have their blue block and that's what they're doing. They're building blue blocks. So they're going to reach for the block you have, and that's your opportunity to teach a mand. And do it in the way that Mary described, where you can, wait, see if they make the appropriate request or the response, whether it's through vocalization of just using the B sound or the full word, or maybe you have a client who's on a more advanced stage and they're using full sentences of may I have the block? Or it's a client who is not using their vocalizations, but they're instead using PECS or some other AAC device. Or they're in more early stages and they're just working on pointing to ask for something. So those are the two different ways that you can use MOs to teach MANs. Okay, so tomorrow is where we will really dive into interventions on how to design interventions, how to identify which intervention is being used not next week, tomorrow morning for me. It might be afternoon for some of you or night for some of you. So that the presentation tomorrow won't really be in a presentation format. It'll be more of a group breakouts, some practice exam questions that are around this subject matter. But that's all for the lecture part. Are there more questions that people have that they would like to talk about? If you have to go, that's totally fine. It's almost been an hour anyway. I see a couple of people have had to leave, so that's totally fine. But I am here to answer questions if you guys have any.
Just for my clarification, can we go back to that example that they were talking about, given the sign language and verbally saying hello, and then the child signing back? If the student is nonverbal and their response is sign language, is the verbal, them saying hello verbally in addition to signing, is that verbal just a prompt at that point? Almost like a double SD kind of?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to clarify. So I think they said the student was nonverbal, so they're signing hello and saying hello to the child, and then the child's response was signing hello back. So it's almost like, so
yeah. So it's like normal when like people are signing to their friends or colleagues or whoever, they're signing and saying at the same time. Like
yeah,
right.
Yeah, so them saying it verbally on top of signing, is that verbal considered just a prompt to go along with the signing? Or I guess I was confused at what the question was that they were asking. Were they saying that?
Yeah,
They were asking, was it an intraverbal, or if it was, what was it, a code?
So the question was that you are saying hello to a non-vocal child,
Uh-huh.
and they're responding back hello in sign language.
Okay.
So is that considered an echoic or an intraverbal?
Yeah, so the first person's response is vocal, like just saying hello, and then the second person's response is sign language, hello.
But I think I heard verbal and sign.
Yeah, she said that they were doing both. So the first person is giving both a verbal and a signed response, but the student is nonverbal and is giving the signed response back.
I don't think that that's what they're talking about. I think it's like a conversation. So like,
yeah, it makes sense. Like the way you explained it, Jess, it made a lot more sense. Like I understood how it is an interverbal the way you explained it. But I was just saying the way that I looked at it was because it's the same word. I thought it had point to point, so there was no way it would be an intraverbal. But the way you broke it down, I think it makes sense.
How that point to point? Because is that point to point?
It is technically point to point because it's the same content, the same word. So like if I said apple and then somebody signed apple, it's the same word. But I think I'll have to double check. I want to double check based on the,
Yeah.
if you find it in the book, because
Yeah, I'm gonna look because I was thinking that the only way it possibly could be the interverbal is because you're using sign language to spell out each letter, HELLO. So that right there would be no point to point.
and if you also
Oh,
think
that
of
would
it
be
as
point to point
a
though.
different language, like how if I say apple, but then someone in Spanish says manzana, like that is a different word. It's a different point to point. So it's an interverbal when you're learning a new language. And sign language might be considered that, but I just want to double check for you guys.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I think I'm confusing myself. So an intraverbal, it doesn't have to be the same form. Is that right?
Right, it doesn't have to be the same form.
Okay, okay, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Sorry, I was
Great
confused.
questions. Good to be sure. Any other questions?
Can I have a question? I always have a hard time to differentiate between codec, transcription, textual. This
Mhm.
three is really my weak point. I when it comes to scenario, I cannot differentiate.
Yeah, so let me show you this. I'm just going to show it to you here, but you can also find it. I'll show you where to find it too. And I
Oh
have
yeah, I saw that last week.
practice examples too. So if you want more practice with it,
Where? Oh, in that. Okay.
yeah, let me just, oh man, why am I not signed in already? Manage. Okay, so there's that, but then there's also, go to content course. So in the actual BCBA online learning platform, this thing, preview it so you see what it looks like.
Where is that?
So this is the website that I made for you guys so that it organizes all of the learning content, all of the videos. So verbal behavior is the section we're on.
Yeah, I tried to click on it. I couldn't open it yesterday.
Oh, no.
We can access that from the Facebook page.
Yeah, there's a link on the Facebook page. You can also just type in.
Yeah, you sign in already and you get the account, right?
Yeah, it's a free, all of it's free. It should let you.
Yeah, I did that, but yesterday it wasn't showing me.
Yeah, it doesn't, Liz, it doesn't open up because I'm a part of it too.
Yeah.
I don't know, it doesn't, like I try to click on all of them because I was so excited for it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
but then
let's
it doesn't
try it
open.
then right now. Let me.
Me too. I tried to do it even yesterday, last night. It wasn't opening.
So let's see. I'm gonna pretend I'm a new person to this site.
It actually happened to me. I think I was doing it last night and it was like frozen, but I tried like 3 times and it let me in.
So you guys are clicking the start learning button. And then you should make an account. I probably already have one. Yeah, it's already taken. Okay, well, let me just sign in. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're saying that this is the little card for the class. It won't take you into this?
You can't, like when you go through the menu and you see like all the categories that pop up in gray, it doesn't allow you to click on it.
This part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like where you see like measurement and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll let you like see the outline, but the way to get into the class is to this button, the start learning.
1 second.
And then there's this start course button. And
Liz, I just want to say that this is really awesome. Thank you for creating this.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad it's useful.
Yes, I find it awesome too, and I want to thank you for your time and for putting it so nicely and professional and explaining it so neatly and nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The feedback is so nice.
Yes. Yes. Now, this is my first study session because I just found your Facebook group, like, I think after like that verbal handout visual that was posted, I was like, oh my God, this is so organized to help me understand it better. So appreciative.
Of course. Thank you for the feedback. Yes, I definitely want to I like making content. Like part of my background before I got into behavior analysis was in graphic design, video editing, instructional design, all that sort of fun stuff. So this just kind of feels natural to me. But Mary, I wanted to point out that if you are able to get into this, hopefully you're able to figure it out. If not, we can work on it. I'll probably make like a quick little how-to video for getting in here. But below the part 2 video, there is that flow chart that we were just looking at, but there's also this practice worksheet, and it's a Word document, which let it open up. It's loading. Here it is. Okay, so this is like a little worksheet to help you practice. And it's the same thing. If you guys joined the live session for part 2, these are the same questions. But basically it gives you this controlling variable and then the response. And then you get to type in the side what it is. And then there's an answer key down at the bottom. But try not to cheat. Try to answer it all first before you look down there. So that's all in there for you. I don't even know if Mary's still online. Okay, participants. Oh, she is. Cool. Hopefully you saw that, Mary. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know. Keep trying to open it up. I'm gonna right after this, right after I end the call with you guys, I'm gonna go and make a video for how to get into this to make sure it's working. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you very much. You're awesome. I don't know, for some reason, I feel so comfortable in your class.
Oh, good. I want you guys to be comfortable. I feel like it's
Me
better
too.
that way.
I don't usually put my camera
you
on
so much.
other Zooms. I don't even talk. I'm
Aw.
surprised why I talk today.
I know. Oh, so my parents are teachers, and my boyfriend's a teacher too, and they're all doing the distance learning stuff. And
Beautiful, beautiful.
don't
You
even-
have a very good heart, and your face and your tone of voice is already calming. We all are
Yes,
working
it
hard.
is.
Yes, it is very
I agree.
calming.
It's very
I agree.
soothing. Like, I love it. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
good. That's why we love it. I'm looking forward tomorrow. Is the same link for tomorrow?
I'll double check. It's probably a different one, but I post them
Okay.
every single time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see you. Hopefully tonight I will finish these quizzes. I think I did 1 or 2 of them. How we can go back to find out or the one we did it?
Like on the learning platform.
Yeah, that's okay. I will discover tonight.
Yeah. And if message me on Facebook if you have trouble with it.
Sure.
I'll be around.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
And sorry I was late today. I thought it's 4 o'clock.
Oh, don't even worry.
What time is the session tomorrow?
It's 9 o'clock Pacific time. So for Eastern time, that would be 12.
Okay.
It's very good. I like that time, 9 o'clock.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
see you
all.
tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Liz, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Whatever.